Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to wait just 2 more minutes to let others join, and then we'll begin today's conversation. Welcome to the September installment of our Post-Secondary Pathway series hosted by the Hunt Institute. Our topic of discussion is focused on leveraging industry partners to increase state-level support for HBCUs. I am Dr. Waverly Wissenant, Deputy Director of Higher Education at the Hunt Institute. For those unfamiliar with the Institute, we were founded by four-term North Carolina Governor Jim Hunt and serve as a resource for policymakers on education issues from prenatal through higher education. We offer in-person and virtual convenings, conduct research, and offer other forms of technical assistance to states across the country. The Hunt Institute, again, is a national nonprofit dedicated to supporting and advising education leaders and policymakers nationwide on education issues across the education continuum. Before getting the conversation started, I want to provide a brief logistical overview. We'll start with a moderated discussion with our panelists and then pivot to a Q&A with the audience. If you have any questions throughout the discussion, please feel free to submit them using the Q&A feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll do our best to address them during the discussion. Additionally, we will record this conversation in the next couple of days, posted on our YouTube channel. And speaking of today's conversation, we are so appreciative of the experts who are joining us today to discuss the challenges facing HBCUs at the state level and address ways states can leverage industry partners to support HBCUs and their students. To that end, I'm pleased to introduce our experts from around the country who will help us frame the topic of leveraging industry partners to increase state-level support for HBCUs. Our resource expert is Dewey Norwood from Wells Fargo, and our moderator is Dr. Courtney B. Francis from Lumina Foundation. Let me introduce our moderator, Dr. Courtney B. Francis. Dr. Francis began her role as a strategy officer for state policy at Lumina in June of 2024. Working from Lumina's DC office, she supports states' efforts to increase education attainment and eliminate racial disparities by implementing Lumina's state policy agenda. Prior to her current role, Dr. Francis worked with us here at the Hunt Institute, where she served as the Deputy Director of Higher Education. She has many years of experience in policy, government, and nonprofit in higher education settings. Dr. Francis, thank you so much for being here with us today. Now let me hand the reins over to you, Dr. Francis, who will moderate the initial discussion and the Q&A to follow.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I am very happy to be on this call for a conversation that I believe is truly needed. Today, I have with me Dewey Norwood. Dewey Norwood is the Executive Director on Wells Fargo's External Engagement Team in Diverse Segments, Representation and Inclusion. In this senior role, he manages Wells Fargo's enterprise Wells Fargo's Enterprise Historically Black Colleges and Universities strategy. And Dewey also has extensive industry experience and has been an advocate for engaging HBCUs as partners for corporations. And so I'm incredibly excited that Dewey is here, and I'm very happy for us to engage in this conversation. And if you don't mind, Dewey and folks on the call, I would love to set the stage briefly about the conversation we're having today and just shed some light into the economic impact of HBCUs for those of you who are coming to this topic with a fresh set of eyes. Historically Black colleges and universities have a significant economic impact on the communities that they serve, including the states in which they're nested. And when we talk about economic impact, we can look at it in different subcategories. When we talk about economic impact in the form of job creation, HBCUs create jobs in local and regional economies. And with UNCF's 2024 report that they released September 12th, entitled Transforming Futures, the Economic Engine of HBCUs, they noted that HBCUs created over 136,000 jobs in 2021, which is more than the number of jobs that are often at some of the largest publicly traded American companies. And then when we look at economic impact in regards to the state and the national level, HBCUs generate billions of dollars in economic impact annually. That same UNCF report estimated that 16.5 billion in economic impact is coming from HBCU institutions. And then when we look at economic impact, we can't just stop at how the local economy is doing or the jobs that are happening, but we also need to look at lifetime earnings, right? That economic prosperity. And HBCUs generate billions of dollars in economic impact. But when it comes to lifetime earnings, HBCUs contribute to the economic success of their graduates. That same UNCF report estimated that the graduates of 2021 generated 146 billion in lifetime earnings. So we can see that HBCUs are economic engines in their communities and play a major role in the economy. And all of that is to be said while they're operating under the backdrop of underfunding, challenges in resource disparities, and enrollment pressures that can often hinder these institutions from operating in the same way as their predominantly white institutional peers. And so having conversations about how industries can leverage their work with HBCUs to create an economic impact that doesn't just stop with the jobs created in the community, but lasting effects for lifetime earnings and jobs throughout the nation. I think this is the perfect time to have a conversation with Dewey about his work at Wells Fargo. So Dewey, I'm gonna kind of shift gears and start asking you a couple of questions. I am really grateful that you're here today. Can you please share with us about your role at Wells Fargo? Give us the insight into what you do in your day-to-day role.
I can, Dr. Francis, happy to do that. And first of all, to the Hunt Institute, thank you so much for this invitation. Honored and privileged to be able to be a part of what I was going to be a dynamic discussion today. And I think we have 8 hours, is what I was told. 8 hours of content. It is 8 hours, right? So
A little bit less.
Let's go straight into the NFL game right after. But no, I know over the next hour we're going to get a lot covered, and you all are an important part of that conversation. So please utilize the Q&A feature with things. Dr. Francis, one other preamble before we get to your real question. We certainly want to acknowledge our friends and colleagues all over the country that are being impacted by the storm, especially folks in Florida. Was just on a call with some business partners earlier today. They were happy to report that folks are doing well, but thoughts and prayers to folks that are out there, and please be safe and do the things that you need to do and check in with others that may be in this relative path with things. So a little bit about my background. So native New Yorker, let's get that on the record. So shout out to any of the New Yorkers that are on. Ultimately, then come on, New NYC, we love it. Ultimately, then lived in New Jersey, and then my family moved here to North Carolina. So Charlotte, North Carolina is home for me. Have been in the banking industry now for 26 years with experience in retail brokerage, experience in corporate communications, experience in our corporate investment bank, the Wells Fargo Foundation, and then also work across both our DE&I teams, human resources, and now are part of the diverse segments representation and inclusion team. And in a nutshell, my role is responsible for bringing all Wells Fargo's resources and benefits to the aid of HBCUs. And I want to say that in a couple of different ways. A, we certainly want to make sure that we're getting all of the resources that we can to the students that are currently enrolled. We also want to find ways to engage with the alumni. Maybe you graduated 10, 15, 20 years ago. We want to find ways to engage with you across different areas as well, which we'll talk more about. Certainly when we think about the university leadership, so the university presidents and the folks that are serving kind of in that C-suite level or cabinet level positions within the universities on the administrative side, engaging with them. But Dr. Francis, we can't forget about the communities. We have communities where our HBCUs are. And again, I was just on with our team in the FAMU market a little bit earlier, and we were on on with other partners as well. And listen, we got to make sure that we're taking care of FAMU, and we have to take care of North Carolina, the communities there in Durham or in Tallahassee and other kinds of areas. So I think that's one of the biggest opportunities for corporate funders and those that are looking for ways to support HBCUs is to support, again, the students, the alumni, the administrators, their staff, and then of course the communities where HBCUs are. So that's a little bit about what I do. And again, 26 years, blessed to be in this industry now for 26 years and counting.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Dewey. And I will definitely circle back to you about, you know, how you all are supporting alumni, how you're supporting students, and also the big one of the communities that these HBCUs are nested in. So we'll definitely circle back to that. But in lieu of our conversation this morning, I definitely want to dive into how can industry partners be effectively engaged to support HBCUs? What do our HBCUs need to know about this?
So Dr. Francis, again, is such a great question. And for me, the biggest key, and for every HBCU partner that's on today, my hope is that you are reaching out to every large firm that's in your market and in your region. And I don't just mean in your city, I mean in the surrounding areas, to talk to them about, hey, when was the last time you had an opportunity to come and visit us on campus? Hey, is it possible for us to get connected in with your human resources partners so we can learn about career pathways for that great junior who is now going to be looking for that internship before graduation, or that freshman that wants to participate in the sessions or events that may be happening within a given institute, within a given corporation. And so I think it's a lot of just asking, just knocking on the doors of these firms saying, hey, when's the last time you've been to campus? And not just for homecoming. Love homecoming. My wife's an HBCU. I'm not an HBCU grad, so let's get that on the record. But I was smart enough to marry a woman who is an HBCU grad. So shout out to Queen Amanda by way of Elizabeth City State University. But a lot of this is just corporate partners have to be asked. There are a lot of areas that we're focusing in on, certainly within the banking industry, certain deliverables that we have to do both to satisfy the street, to satisfy our 250,000+ employees, et cetera. But a lot of this is just simply asking. Get folks on campus. Okay, so what do we do when we get them there? Hey, let's take them to a class. Let's give them an opportunity to kind of meet some of the students that we're engaging with. Let's ask them to come in and serve as an executive on loan. Let's put them on the advisory councils. Let's give them an opportunity to engage maybe on the board of visitors or other kinds of areas where they can really kind of pull up their sleeves and get into the work that's happening on the HBCU campuses. So again, a lot of this begins with simply asking. And I would say also be very, very intentional. When you're coming to a Wells Fargo, when you're coming to another financial services firm, or when you're coming to a pharma firm or a tech firm, have a wish list of, hey, these are the things that we'd love to be able to engage with you all in the days ahead. This is a history of how we've engaged in the past. These are some of the successes that we've had. These are some of the areas that maybe we could improve on. And then from there, go in with a game plan. But it's literally as simply as reaching out and asking to come visit, come see what's here, and then, hey, these are the resources that we ultimately would love to have from a Wells Fargo to be able to engage in our community. So, Dr. Francis, I think that's the start. It's simply just asking. Just start by asking.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know my mom always told me all the time, you'll never know unless you ask. Like, you won't have if you don't ask. And so that sounds like a very great poignant way to remind folks that like the opportunity is out there, the resources can be there. They just need to kind of step out and ask, kind of put themselves out there.
And to add on to that, and you said it so well, and my buddy, good partner of ours over the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, use this term. She says, if you do not ASK, you do not GET. So shout out, Ruth. I'm shouting you out on the broadcast here. So
that's how it's done. That's how it's done. Yeah.
So I think that's an important piece. Please.
Yeah, so, you mentioned it's important for them to ask. It's important for
Yes.
them to engage partners in that regard. What models of partnerships have shown the most promise in your experience?
Yeah. So I can speak a little bit about, and I will add this as a disclaimer. Certainly, I'm going to speak about some of the work that's been happening from a Wells Fargo perspective. I've been in this role for a little bit over 2 years now, but the comments that I'm sharing certainly are from my personal point of view. So I just want to make sure we have that on the record. But for us, we've actually been able to have some really unique engagements. And candidly, you'll see some of those here. And this is not an attempt to advertise, but this is a perfect example of a way that we are engaging with HBCUs. Wells Fargo in April of 2022 launched what I considered a groundbreaking series of debit cards in celebration of historically Black colleges and universities. And so, as a part of these cards, we pay a licensing fee to each of the institutions, and then our retail banking customers can customize their, standard Wells Fargo beautiful red card with the one for Jackson State, or the one for Shaw, the one for Elizabeth City or Tennessee State. So that's again a product suite that we're able to bring to customers by way of the HBCUs. So that's an example in those kinds of areas. We also have been doing a lot of great work with the bowl games and the classics. And I've got the pin on today for the Florida Classic. So again, we'll keep the focus on the Sunshine State a little bit here. We've got that game that's going to be coming up for us between Bethune-Cookman and FAMU. We are just coming off of the NY Football Classic, which was a game pitting Morehouse versus Howard University, the real HU. So that's what they say. That's what they told me. Don't get mad at me, Hampton people, but that's what they told me. So I'm just repeating what they said. So that's an engagement in New York. 35,000 fans there in New Jersey that maybe are not as connected to HBCUs. Maybe they're hearing about HBCUs for the first time. So we're using sports there. And then the Orange Blossom Classic with our friends from North Carolina Central and Alabama State. So again, we're using the game of football to have conversations around, what are you thinking about with these changes in mortgage rates? Hey, are there banking products that we could ultimately provide for you? Are there opportunities for us to talk about small business? How can I win you as a client? How can I win you to the firm from a recruiting perspective, even though you've been in the industry for 20 years? It's having those kinds of conversations. And last, Dr. Francis, we've also been doing some really, really good work through our conference affiliations. And I brought my pins here. I got one pin on. And I'll hold another one up here that you can maybe see. Have to reverse it the right way. So this is the pin for the CIAA. Wells Fargo is the official bank of the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association. So for us, this gives us connectivity to all 13 of their member institutions to be able to engage with. We do great work with the MEAC, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. Huge shout out to Commissioner Stills and the team there. Wells Fargo was able to be recognized as their corporate partner of the year here for 2024. And the MEAC is also the sponsors or the presenters, better yet, for our Beyond College webinar series, which I know we'll drop that link into the chat. So again, those are examples there. We do work with Dr. Holloman and the team over at the SIAC, certainly connecting to SWAC member schools as well. So that's kind of been our model. And again, it's to bring every resource that Wells Fargo has at its disposal to meet the needs of students, graduates or alumni, the communities, the administrators, and folks that are interested in products and services. Again, whether that's learning about credit or teaching you how to manage your NIL deal. We want to be able to present all of those alternatives in the spaces where we can. So, Dr. Francis, probably more examples than what you wanted.
No, that was great.
That we're engaging from our perspective.
Yeah, that was great. And I wonder if you can maybe even talk a little bit about that piece about helping students understand their credit, right? We talked about the impact of HBCs on the local economy and economic earnings, but we recognize economic prosperity means understanding financial well-being, and financial literacy is a big part of that. Can you speak a little bit to what you all do in that realm?
100%. And I want to shout out our partners, first of all, in the Wells Fargo Foundation. They have some really great resources that they can provide. So no matter where you are joining us from the globe, you have some level of connectivity to the Wells Fargo Foundation. So please Google that. And then in turn, you can learn about the partners that focus there. But you touched on it. Being able to get those principles of credit, and I jokingly say this, when you got on Birkenstocks or some J's, get those things while you're on campus. Do not wait, please. Do not wait until after graduation to start focusing on building your credit. There are some opportunities that are available for you, certainly through our firm, but through lots of financial service providers that can help you as a student kind of start building that credit. What is that going to do? Hey, maybe you're getting that first apartment for that internship, or the apartment or the home that you want to own long term. You can start building that credit. While you got the Birkenstocks and the J's on campus. Really, really important. It also comes in handy when you're thinking about a business. Let's maybe maybe you're considering starting a business. Let's go ahead and get some of those financial principles in line for you. Let's talk about how to look at a P&L. Let's talk about how to look at a balance sheet. Let's give you some of those principles from an accounting perspective that are going to be helpful for you in your personal growth and development once you graduate, and then certainly once you hang your own shingle and go into a career in different areas. So again, I got to shout out our Beyond College webinar series presented by the MEAC. Our October webinar is going to be on the topic of unboxing credit, credit matters that matter. And then in November, we're going to do a discussion that talks about home ownership. And so huge shout out to Wanda K. Brady and Chuck Bishop and the team there. We're going to be talking with, again, giving you these principles now while you are in school so that you can think about them and start being really, really planful for the future. The credit piece is critical. And we have to know, hey, these are some of the pitfalls to avoid. And these are the things that you can be doing to build your credit for the future. Super, super important, Dr. Francis. Thank you for raising that.
Thank you. And I know that when we talk about industry partnerships with the post-secondary sector, something that is always on the forefront of students as they talk about value is jobs and getting jobs and getting into an industry profession post-graduation. And I'm wondering if you can maybe touch on a couple of things, or maybe one thing that you all are doing at Wells Fargo to support HBCU students in recognizing that completing that degree can come with career pathways through these types of partnerships.
So let's get to, Dr. Francis, you said it so well. Let's get to some of the facts. And I saw a McKinsey study, and folks can take a look at this, talking about the African-American dollar and ultimately where it will be. And I've seen numbers ranging from 1.4 trillion to 1.7 trillion by the time we get to 2030. So that's an important factor to keep in mind. And please look at that study and others that are out there to learn more. But here's the other thing that we know. A college graduate traditionally over the course of their employment experience is going to earn $1 million more than someone that only has a high school degree. That's an important factor. That doesn't mean you can't have a high school degree and be incredibly successful. But if you have that college degree, it has the potential to give you a boost, maybe in other areas there financially and economically. And raise your hand if you don't want $1 million more. So that becomes one of the pieces on our side. So for us, we have great programs across the firm to attract top tier talent to our institutions. And I believe that we find top tier talent every day across every HBCU campus. So we have internship opportunities as early as your sophomore year. Homework, everybody that's on, go ahead and connect in with Ayanna Collins. Go ahead and connect in with Calvin Thompson. Go ahead and connect in with Leroy Clark from our firm. They can give you all of the details around the programming that they're delivering. I had a conversation with Ayanna online today. She literally is in Minneapolis today, facilitating her Changemaker Summit. This is the third installment. They did one in Phoenix, they did one here in Charlotte, and now they're in Minneapolis today, engaging with students at HBCUs, and I think also at HSIs, to talk about career pathways. Scholars, you are amazing. I'm looking directly in the camera. You are amazing. We realize that. We understand that you have to see a growth and a place where you feel like you can increase as a part of your career trajectory. I believe that I found that with Wells Fargo. I believe that you'll have the opportunities to find that with our institution as well. But please, don't come ask me second semester of your senior year. No. I love you. I need to see you in the sophomore year, coming and participating in the webinars that we're doing or in the summits, so we can start getting you on that pathway for those paid internships. 100% of the internships across our firm are always paid. And then that gets you in that pathway to say, hey, this is a career opportunity that I'm interested in, or it gives you a chance to try a path and say, you know what, maybe I'm not as interested in that particular area of finance. And you can kind of make the adjustments that you need to once you head back to campus. So internships are there. Full-time opportunities. There are opportunities across every spectrum. And I'll end with this one, Dr. Francis, on this one. Please remember, whether you're an anthropology major or zoology major, A to Z, you have the ability to be in the financial services industry. We're going to teach you the things that you need to know, and you're going to be in an industry that you know is going to continue to grow and develop in the days ahead. So no matter what your major concentration, I believe that there are opportunities in financial services for you. The biggest thing, it goes back to what we said earlier, you got to jump on the website. You got to look at those career opportunities. You have to engage with leaders to say, wow, it seems like you're doing some great things in investment banking or in accounting, or wow, I'm interested in the risk world. How can I get connected in there? And then in turn, we can help you grow and develop. And again, we're doing that on HBCU campuses today. And I believe that there's opportunities to continue to build for the future.
Thank you so much. I
Sure.
appreciate that.
Sure.
I feel like I have a ton of questions based off of what you just shared, but I want to make sure that I'm priming the folks who are on the
Yes.
call to get their questions ready so they can ask you any questions that they may have. And so I'm going to remind folks who are watching this to submit your questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and get ready to ask Dewey the questions that you may have. But I do have one more question for you,
Please.
Dewey, before we turn it over to folks who may have some questions for you.
Q&A. The Q&A is my favorite part, by the way, too. Not that the questions aren't great, but the Q&A is.
I was like, I feel like I'm doing a great job, but you're right.
Q&A.
Q&A.
Let's give it up for Dr. Francis, y'all. Come on, camera. Give us claps. Give us the heart emoji.
Q&A is where it's at. I definitely get it. But I definitely want to kind of bring the conversation back to that state level partnership, industry partnership. And there are many ways that higher education institutions, specifically HBCUs, can leverage industry partnerships to enhance support while aligning with economic development and community engagement, things that you spoke to very well in this conversation. When we're looking into increasing state level support from a corporate funder perspective that you have, what actions do you think can be taken to encourage industry investments in HBCUs?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. And I do want to preface this. I'm the one person that's not the doctor. It's not like doctors everywhere. I'm the one that's not the doctor. And I also don't work on the public policy side of it.
Right.
Great leaders that engage in those spaces. But here's the way that I would answer it. Virtual show of hands, again, for the folks that are in the audience. How many folks had an opportunity to participate over the last couple of weeks in the White House HBCU initiatives that were taking place in Philly? I hope that hands are up all over the world. If you are not attending this event on an annual basis, this is a required read. You must be there because you are going to run into first of all, every government agency is there. They were hosting, Dr. Francis, events where you could meet the FAA and you could meet the folks from the Internal Revenue Service. You could meet the folks from Department of Ed, or I mean, you name it. Everyone was in one room. You could literally go across the room and say, wow, these are the things that are important to me in the state of North Carolina. These are the things that are happening in Alabama. These are the things that are happening in the Mid-Atlantic. You can have those kinds of conversations with individuals, candidly, that have dollars from the federal budget that they need to deploy to solve for technology challenges in a given market or region, agricultural innovation that's happening in other kinds of spaces. So I would say make sure that you're connecting into those types of things at a federal government level. There were similar engagement opportunities at your state levels. You need to be in contact with your legislatures. Make sure you're connecting in with the folks in your respective capitals. When they have opportunities, go and talk about the things that are happening on your campuses. Going back to my old sheet of music here, my wife is a musician. Going back to my old sheet of music, you got to go and invite them. Come join us on campus. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about the economic impact that we're providing today to the state of North Carolina, to the state of Georgia, to the state of Texas. Let's talk about the things that are happening there. And then let's talk about the solutions. Here are 5 ways that we'd love to have you engage. Here are 5 things that we can bring to the state in different kinds of ways. I think those pieces become really, really important. Now, and I'll end with this part. For the institutions that are in these markets and regions, same rules apply. Go to those institutions. When I mean from the institution, I'm talking about the companies, the organizations. That go to them. Hey, these are the things that we need. In these instances where you can, maybe there's a joint meeting. Maybe it's facilitated in a location where you can bring in leaders to talk about all kinds of things that are happening from a state level. Certainly education is going to come in those areas. Employment opportunities, underemployment, any of the places where there are challenges. I think you can bring up those things, realizing that you have never had a great, thriving company that does not have a great community behind it in some way, shape, or form. And so I think you can build those conversations. And then again, if you're building these relationships from the ground up, start now and then continue to build those in the days ahead. So again, Dr. Francis, my opinion on what I would be thinking about if I were at a university or given area, I'd be spending a lot of time in Raleigh as often as we can. And I would get to these national events to raise your hand and spotlight the amazing work that's happening at your institution through your scholars, through your alumni, and how that helps to solve the greater needs from a community perspective. So long answer on that one.
I think that was a needed answer. So thank you very much. And I will say, You've made a great point, Dewey, about these relationships. And I think a lot of, as someone who does state policy strategy type work, a lot of the progress is made through these relationships and connections.
Yes.
And so I would encourage HBCU leaders to bring their work and highlight what they're doing to their local legislature. And if they have partners who are corporate funders like
Yes.
yourself, bring them into those conversations with your local legislators or higher education champions, because those are the ones who are going to help you champion those issues for leveraging additional support for your institutions and highlighting the economic impact that your institution can make in your state.
Dr. Francis, you said it so well there. And I'll give another just recent example, or an upcoming example, better yet. And again, I'm gonna go back to FAMU. Huge shout out to our friends in Tallahassee, heart emoji. They are going to be hosting on the campus of FAMU their industry cluster, where they bring in folks from all over to talk about how they are engaging with HBCUs. University president partners that are on, I would encourage you to create your own industry cluster. Invite every company that's connected in the alumni in different countries. Invite them all to campus. Maybe we host it virtually for the first couple of years. Get folks to campus. But the industry cluster is a great chance. You hear from industry leaders. They talk about the things that they've done. They kind of show you their playbook of the things that they've been able to accomplish in given kinds of areas. And it's almost like a little think tank. You know, you get into there, you're mixing it up, and say, oh wow, we're doing that, or I never thought of that. Let me take that down as a note. And so you're able to kind of build in those spaces. So again, if you build it, we will come, as somebody said on the call a little bit earlier today. So if you put those kinds of opportunities together, I guarantee you, your corporate partners are going to want to be there, to engage with your administrators and the university presidents, but also to be able to engage with the scholars, with the students, with the alumni. Again, certainly to talk about the resources that we make available from a products and services perspective, but also listen, I want to be a mentor on your campus. How can I do that? I want to send my son or daughter to this institution in 5, 10, 2 years. What do I need to be thinking about in those kinds of areas? And to a person, I think folks are going to want to say that they want to support in some way, shape, or form. So.
Right. I 100% agree. I think that is a really great approach, and I'm glad that our institutions are hearing this directly from you. And hopefully our state legislators or lawmakers who are on the call as well are hearing this idea, and they're bringing it back to their communities and having conversations with their institutions and with their peers to support an effort or something similar to what they're doing at Florida A&M University. I am going to now stop hogging because I know Q&A is the best part. And I will pass it off to the first question that we have in the chat, and that is, what specific skills or areas of focus should HBCUs prioritize in their partnerships with industry to enhance career readiness for their students?
Yeah, so thank you to the person that submitted that question. I think we got to think about tech. We've got to make sure that everybody is as technically savvy in the spaces where they can be. Technology, whether it's AI, ML, all of those pieces. And I mentioned it earlier, we've got a webinar today that's focusing on social media smarts. So technology is going to be an important piece. I also think the team building components is a really important item. If folks, you can Google this one too. You'll be really impressed, really impressed. I was fortunate to be a student athlete when I was in college. I noticed I focused on the emphasis on the student side. I was really fortunate to be a baseball player for 4 years at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So, and don't put my stats in the chat, Jay, because I know you can look them up fast. Don't put that in the chat, because you'll be like, I didn't know you could have a batting average that low. But with that said, you know, we're finding ways to engage in any of the spaces where we can. Again, communication is important. Teamwork becomes another important piece. I think you can also start talking about what are the specialized skills that are needed to come into the banking industry. Maybe it's being able to pull up a session where someone from the Wells Fargo comes in and facilitates a discussion on credit, or we talk about risk, or we introduce you to the new AI technology or the new app development kinds of spaces. I think those are some of the things that become really important. And it also helps if you simply ask the industries. So from our perspective, again, that team building piece is an important part for Wells Fargo. That focus on understanding the technology space and everything that's happening in fintech areas, super important to us. And I'll add a final one on as we kind of close this topic. I think the importance of communication. Let's continue to give students opportunities to build those communication skills. And I'll give a couple of examples. Maybe they're having to have an opportunity to present. Let's get those presentation skills up and built and strengthen it in kind of areas where we can. Let's also focus on some of the technical pieces. Hey, when I need to write an email in a persuasive tone to my manager or to my manager's manager or to the CEO, because I have an opinion on the direction that the firm should go, how do I go about doing that? But then also, do I send it to the CEO or do I tell my manager and my manager's manager that I'm going to send it to the CEO before I send it? So it's some of that communication style there, some of the nonverbal pieces, some of the things around kind of there's just a lot of other things that you can kind of learn from a communications perspective that will really, really be beneficial for you, because we're going to have to communicate, whether it's through a text message or whether it's through a GIF that you send someone, or whether it's through a well-written 4-paragraph email that you put together as you're pitching an idea or a deal. So again, adding on to the technology side of things, very important, a focus on team. Industries are based on team. Look at 250,000 folks who work for a team. There are teams that are associated there. And I would say an added emphasis on the importance of communication, whether you're speaking with an audience of 10 or whether you're speaking in front of 10,000. We still need to be able to communicate the messages in a respectful and appropriate way. So that's A, B, and C for me, Dr. Francis, for some things that I would encourage folks to kind of put at the top of the list for skills that are going to be really, really beneficial, specifically, I think, in the financial industry, but in other spaces as well.
You're right. Those soft skills that you were mentioning are things that are just sometimes a little intangible, but they are so needed. The next question that we have for you is, how can industry partners share resources beyond funding, such as technology or training programs, to further support HBCUs?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of areas where we can find shared wins. And what I would say is, if you're identifying a given need, and I won't go into any, but certainly there are lots of opportunities to provide additional resources across our HBCUs, whether that's through infrastructure, which we know infrastructure is an important piece, because if I'm having increases in enrollment, we've all seen the data. We've seen more and more students now applying to HBCUs. We've seen students of all backgrounds and experiences. Remember, Tim, we're at 74, 78% of African Americans that actually attend HBCUs, but we have others that are joining as well. So those pieces become really, really important in those kinds of areas. So when you can talk about a challenge, and then you can go to, again, I just have to, we'll use the financial services industry. When you can go to a Wells Fargo, when you can talk with a Goldman, or when you can talk with a JP Morgan, or when you can talk with a Truist or a Bank of America, hey, here's a shared opportunity for you to come in and support the recruiting efforts that are happening on our campus. Here's a naming opportunity for a new dorm that we're building, that we'd like to add a trading floor to. Again, I'm just giving some little examples here, but those are examples where, hey, you're all interested in getting top tier talent. Here's a chance for us to get all of you all together, to connecting with our finance students, to connecting with our CS students, to be able to engage in those kinds of areas. And I think you can model that across every industry. If you're in a space where we have a lot of big pharma, be connecting in with them. If you're in a space that has a lot of the agricultural types of firms and companies, talk with them about, hey, when you bring all of these resources to Alabama A&M or Alabama State or Mississippi Valley, wow, John Deere, wow, I mean, you name it, Lowe's, whoever it is, you can bring shared resources there. Again, the minute people see themselves in the game or have some skin in it, they're going to say, yep, I get it now. And it starts with an invitation. Simply invite them. Simply invite them. These are some of the things that we're looking to solve for. You've made your commitments, whether it's through your DE&I commitments or work that's been announced in other kinds of areas, or talent commitments that you've made. You've said that you're going to do it. Let's now help you achieve the goals that you're looking to accomplish across your institution. So use that data, use the statements that organizations have shared and the commitments that they're making to the communities as kind of that starter dollar to start the conversations in those shared spaces. And I will say there are some spaces where there are going to be shared opportunities, and there's certainly, Dr. Francis, candidly, going to be some spaces where there are proprietary types of things that would happen, but there are certainly some spaces where shared opportunities can be unearthed, especially on the community side. These are great questions.
Yeah, they are. I'm going to hop to the next one because we have a couple of them in here. So what emerging trends in industry partnerships should HBCUs be aware of to stay competitive?
Emerging trends. Again, we touched on it a couple of times. AI. Baby, is here to stay. It is here to stay. Machine learning is a real one. I think that is probably going to be one of the trends that we'll see the biggest shift in. Again, virtual show of hands for the folks that are out there. How many of you all have, for your bank, the app installed on your phone or your device? Raise your hands, of course, right? When is the last time you sent a physical check to someone? When is the last time you sent a Zelle payment to someone? These are the mountain movers, Dr. Francis. It's that technology piece that makes transactions more secure and delivers them quickly. That's the driver. We need everything to be exactly 100% secure and as fast as a snap or a clap. So I think those focuses on AI are going to be one of the big pieces. And again, I've even heard university professors and other leaders say these kinds of things. AI can be a part of the work that's doing. It's not the thing. You don't lean on it. You don't say, okay, I got my syllabus. Let me just type this in and spit something out and take it to your professor. We can't do that. Can't do that. But you can use it as a tool in a given area or on a particular topic, or to be able to learn more for things that you're working on. But for me, the work that's happening around technology is the thing. Again, certainly in an industry that's focused around fintech and focused around, again, speed and security. That's probably one of the primary things that we're thinking about from our perspective, at least from our side. Again, not an area that's of expertise to me, other than Zelling my kids' money, which they ask for it all the time, all the time. Send me $5. I'm just kidding. My kids might be listening, so I need to be nice.
Yeah, they might hold you to this after.
They might, especially if we got on YouTube after. They'll be like, man, money. I'm just kidding. But again, technology, that's the driver, team. Technology is the driver. And let's add to that though.
Yeah.
Say that you're in a space where you don't have the resources. We're going back to it. Raise your hand. Hey, Wells Fargo, see that you're committed to focusing on these particular areas around technology. Can I get a subject matter expert from your firm to come in and join us on the Zoom box to do a 30-minute discussion with our scholars? I promise you, if you ask, whether it's asking the community partners or routing those through me or through the team here with the Hunt Institute, we're going to find the right people, and they're going to come in and tell it like a TI is. They're going to give straight information and going to give action items and homework for the scholars to be able to continue to build on down the line. So anyway, my thoughts, Dr. Frank, my thoughts.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Great thoughts. Very, very important thoughts. Another question that we have is, what long-term vision do you see for industry HBCU partnerships? And how can both parties work together to achieve that?
Long-term for me, it's such a great, and again, all these questions have been amazing. Long-term, I just love it when I run into someone that I met, 2, 5, 10 years ago that says, man, as a result of the conversation I had with you, or as a result of working for Wells Fargo, this is where I am today. And I ran into one of those folks fairly recently who had a great, great career with our institution, HBCU grad, had a great, great career with our institution, and is now transitioning on to the next phase of their life. And so for me, I remember when that individual was an analyst. I remember when they first joined, and to kind of see those growth and development opportunities, that to me really, really smiles. And so when we're able to have more of those kinds of discussions, or when we come to the Classic this year, again, for the ones that we'll be doing in Orlando and in New Orleans, and then I come back the next year and a person says, man, Dewey, it was so great, man. Thank you so much for connecting me in with that commercial banker. We had an opportunity to talk with them about an RFP, man, and we got the deal. Or, wow, man, Dewey, thank you so much for connecting me with Ron Tate and the supply diversity team. So cool, man. I'm now a diverse vendor, or I'm in the pipeline, and in the next 18 months, I'm going to be able to be considered to provide a good or service to the institution, and now I can scope and scale that. I think those are the kinds of success stories that happen, and I want to see them happen more and more often across every industry. I love it when it happens for us. Certainly want to be able to see those things happen in other kinds of industries as well. So ask, let's get you the resources that you need, and then come back and report out and say, yep, Dewey, that was a bet, or hey, man, listen, that didn't quite work, and here's 5 things that I need to give you feedback on, because we're open to both sides of it.
Thank you. I will turn to this next question. It is asking a little bit about state level support. So feel free to answer this to your perspective.
To the best of my ability, huh?
Yes. The question is, how can HBCUs measure the impact of their industry partnerships on state level support and funding?
State level support. I think you lead with data, right? And again, please understand, I'm not on the legislative side of things, so I need to answer it for that, but lead with data. Data has never steered me wrong. And what I mean by that is, hey, these are the examples of what we are bringing to the state as a result of, and again, I'm not going to name any names here, but as a result of our enrollment of I'll give you an example. The MEAC has about 55,000 or so students that are there, right? So pick any one of those member schools. Look at what we are bringing, again, to the state's budget. Look at the employment opportunities. X percentage of the students that graduate from our institution are actually staying right here and they're continuing their career pathways. Lead with data. Use examples from your alumni. Alumni X, Y, and Z graduated from our university 15 years ago. And did you know now that she's serving on our advisory board or serving on a council or now is coming back to campus to recruit? I think you just use that data to build the business case for why HBCUs need support. Use that data. And again, everybody's data is going to be a little different. Well, hey, maybe our enrollment's a little bit down. But now, hey, if we're able to get these new components added into the additional resources added in, we can increase enrollment by 5%, 10% over the next 2, 3, 5 years. I think you find ways to lead with that data. If you ask any industry leader, whether it's Charlie Scharf, who heads our firm, or whether it's another financial services provider, or another industry, they are going to want data. If you can bring to them data and a business case and help them solve something that they're having to balance through now, every ear is going to be open, notepads are going to come out, and pens are going to start writing. So I think that's the way to leverage it. And again, how you are a part of the solution and how the additional funding is being provided for the institution or the additional resources or the program for the internships through the governor's office that now gives students an opportunity to experience financial services. All of those things can add value. And then once you've led with the data, you can now come back. Hey, guess what? In 18 months, I'm going to come back again, and I'm going to tell you how we did. In a year, I'm going to invite you on campus to meet or to look at us as we're opening up the new dorm in given areas. So I think all of those pieces become really, really important. And it goes back to relationship and data. I'll kind of leave it with that. Again, my opinion, please, relative to this.
Yes. No, of course. I think that makes a lot of sense. And something that I will also share with folks is there are a lot of different organizations who are actively working to help HBCUs engage state policymakers and engage in reaping state benefits, including engaging with industry partners. And so I mentioned a UNCF report that was published September 12th of this year. Check it out. It's about the economic impact of HBCUs on their communities. And like you can do a deep dive in that read and find resources of how other HBCUs are doing this work. The Century Foundation is also another great resource that's doing a lot of research on HBCUs and how they can engage in increasing the awareness of the economic impact of HBCUs and advocate meaningfully for the resources that are needed for HBCUs to have research facilities, to increase their endowments, to make smoother industry partners or develop smoother industry partnerships. So please take some time to do some of the reading and research of those folks as well. There's another question in the chat.
Can I take just 15 seconds? And I'll just be lightning fast. I know we're keeping an eye on time here, but I just want to give a quick shout out relative to UNCF and also the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. From a numbers perspective, you've been over to banker. I hadn't talked numbers yet, maybe just a little. I got to talk them again. In the last 12 years, Wells Fargo has provided over $40 million of financial support for HBCUs. Those are dollars that we're providing to UNCF. Shout out to Dr. Lomax. Dollars that we're providing to the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. They're just coming off of their Leadership Institute, where I heard some staggering numbers on the scholars that we hired on site for the programming there in Washington, D.C. So Dr. Williams, thank you for letting us be involved. Make sure that you are leveraging. I'm sure a lot of the partners are, if you're a private institution, hey, maybe you have that affiliation with UNCF. If you're a publicly funded institution, maybe you're connecting in with Dr. Williams. Maybe you're joining the fly-ins and the other events that he's doing. Make sure that you are tapping into those kinds of resources. Also, again, I got to go back to the White House initiative on HBCUs from a couple of weeks ago. And again, huge shout out to the Department of Ed. Obviously, President Biden, Vice President Harris for the work that they did relative to that work. And go back and watch the president's announcement on the increased funding that he is now providing for HBCUs. And then listen to the names. I'm feeling like I'm intense. Listen to the names that were mentioned. I guarantee you know the folks there. Call them up. Hey, congratulations. I heard you're receiving a $5 million grant in support of ag on the campus, or to build out your infrastructure, or to eliminate IT issues. Can we grab 15 minutes, or can I visit you on campus to hear more? Or can I connect my CIO with your CIO? Let's just have those conversations in a way that's transparent. And as quickly as you're asking others for information, I got to share it too. Because if it can benefit you and I have it, I have to give up. It's my responsibility to share it with you. Now, what you do with that information once I share it with you, that's kind of on you. But it's my responsibility to share it if we have the committed goal of supporting HBCUs. So, all right, this is me stepping off of my soapbox.
Thank you. I think
stepping off of it.
It was a valuable contribution. I know we are short on time or getting short at time. So I'm gonna I know there's a couple more questions in the chat, but I'm gonna just do one more question. What systems should HBCUs implement to gather feedback from industry partners to continuously improve and strengthen their partnerships?
Yeah, I love this one. And again, all these questions have been amazing. I would consider penning a letter to all of your, again, the major corporations or organizations within, let's just make it easy, 50 to 100 mile radius. Get a listing of all of those things. There's this great thing called Google, and it'll give you all the details that you need. Find the major companies that are there. I would consider penning a letter to them saying, and I'm going to use it from the university president perspective. Hey, I'm President X, Y, and Z from the name of my institution. I've recognized the amazing work that your organization is doing to support employment opportunities within our community. I want to invite you to campus for our HBCU recruiting day. I want to invite you to our campus for our upcoming events and programming so you can meet my leadership team and we can talk about opportunities to continue to meet your needs from an employment perspective and also be able to spotlight some of the areas of focus for our institution. I really look forward to this conversation. Please see my contact information listed below. I would submit to you that if you send those letters out, you are going to hear from a lot of people. And then you're going to be able to start setting up lots of meetings to put you in a position to get folks on campus to talk about, hey, these are the 5 things that we are looking to solve for here. Hey, or did you know we really have this undeveloped land that's here? Wouldn't it be great if your firm were to come in and actually put a naming right on that and help us build a $30 million dorm on campus? And here's some of the ancillary things that we could do with that. Or wow, it seems like you're doing a lot of great work in the technology space. Did you know that X percentage of our students are technology majors? Wouldn't it be great if we had a pipeline program? Can we talk about internships? And then keep the follow-up going. Once that letter has gone out, do a follow-up. Have another representative from the institution actually reach out to those companies, make sure that they've received the letter, and then in turn, ask for a meeting, whether it's happening on Zoom or whether it's happening through another technology mechanism or whether it's face-to-face, or be willing to go meet with them to the extent that you need to. I think that's the start. It's simply by inviting, because some folks may not be familiar with, again, I'm not going to name a university, but a particular university. Maybe they didn't attend an HBCU, similar to me. But I've learned so much simply by engaging and having opportunities to kind of talk with folks. So I think that's what I would do if I were university president. I'm not one, nor do I play one on TV. But that's probably what I would do. I would just start that outreach and then see what type of feedback comes in and then continue to adjust your strategies from there.
And once the partnership is formed, how do you strengthen that? What are ways to keep it going?
Data.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, hey, listen, this is a follow-up letter 18 months later. Hey, industry peer A, just want to let you know, Wells Fargo, that we were able to hire 10 scholars, or congratulations on hiring 10 scholars as a part of your incoming 2024 cohort of students joining the firm. We'd now like to invite those students back again, get them back. We'd now like to invite those students back to campus to talk with the class of 2025 about how they earn their full-time roles. It's use that data. I used to say use the data against this, but now I just say use the data. Get the data and say, wow, we hired 10 kids at this firm and they're from XYZ University. Let's now engage with them and get them back to campus. Use that data, use those metrics to show, hey, we're moving the ball here in given kinds of areas. I think that's the driver with it, that communication. And again, if the communication is not happening today, that's cool. Start it tomorrow and then build those relationships over time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I genuinely appreciate this conversation. I feel as though it was their institutions. Ooh, I think I might have cut out. I hope I didn't.
We heard it all. You were singing there for a minute.
Okay.
It was beautiful. Can you keep saying? I'm
Listen, I try. I'm not Whitney, but I try. I do think that this conversation is important, and we could go on for a while about the economic impact of HBCUs and how industry partners can support them. And I also want to encourage folks who are listening as well to like all of the data that Dewey mentioned, all of the good work that you all are doing, bring that to your local state legislature, bring it to the higher ed champions who are in government, who are able to champion your needs. Because that's one way to ensure that it's always forefront. Don't get tired of the pursuit to reap what is rightfully earned of these institutions. I do, again, want to highlight that UNCF report. I want to highlight the Century Foundation. I'm not sure if I didn't send a lot of links, so I'm not on top of it like Dewey, but please look them up because they are doing a lot of great work in getting legislators educated and understanding the ways in which these industry partnerships and many other things can support HBCUs and ultimately the communities and the states that they serve.
Dr. Prince, I got to add on this because you struck a chord.
Yeah, yeah.
This is just talking about history. Everybody loves history. There are so many things that we've been able to learn across history. Maybe you don't know that a lot of the HBCUs didn't get started until 1870s. I mean, let's learn some of the lessons there. And certainly there were institutions that started hundreds of years before. Let's find opportunities to talk about the storied histories of these historically Black colleges and universities. The innovation that's happening. And I'll shout out Elizabeth City, my wife's alma mater. They have an amazing aviation program there. And so you can go there and you can learn to fly, like literally, whether it's a drone or like, a commercial airline, you can learn to fly in Elizabeth City, State, North Carolina. It's those storytelling opportunities that become really important. And again, folks may not know. Let's no longer think that they should already know. Let's say, hey, you don't know this. Let me enlighten you. Let me bring a scholar in so they can share their experience. And so you can see the investments that are being made. So again, all right, I'm soapboxing again. I was about halfway up, Dr. Francis, and I got right off.
No worries. I definitely appreciated this conversation, Dewey. It was great. I do want to highlight that the Lumina Foundation does work with HBCUs, and we have a lot of articles that you can read, and we highlight a lot of the initiatives that we're seeing and we're supporting, so I encourage you to check them out. But I appreciate being on this call. I appreciate the Hunt Institute for letting me come back. Yes. I have a soft spot in my heart for the Hunt Institute and the higher education team specifically. I look forward to more conversations like these, Dewey. It was a pleasure meeting you. I hope this isn't the last time that we get to connect. But with that, Waverly, I'll hand it back to you.
Well, thank you both. I wish we could keep this conversation going, but we're about at time. So again, thank you to our duo, Dewey and Dr. Francis, for joining us for today's engaging and informative discussion. Before closing today's discussion, the Hunt Institute is going to share some links for our upcoming webinar, where we will be revisiting our conversation on FAFSA on October 10th. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you then. Again, we're going to drop that registration link in the chat, and we encourage you to join us for other upcoming Hunt Institute webinars listed on in the link. You can register for those discussions by going to that website, again, which will be posted in the chat. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Everybody. Don't forget, when HBCUs win, we all win.
Thanks, everyone.